Welcome to the Savvy Radio Show with your host, Savvy Landlord. Up next is the best deal ever on Fridays. Check out all episodes on SavvyRadioShow.com.
All right, savvy investors out there, it is Fabulous Friday, and I have a deal for you. Anyway, let me set this up. This wasn't a deal that I wanted to buy. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and some say the war zone. When I got this property presented to me, it was $16,000 from a wholesaler. And I ran over there and looked at the property, and I realized this is not the property for me. It was really rough on the inside. The tenants, they've been living there for a long time. I don't know what to say, but there was a hole in the floor. It was been smoked in pretty heavily, and it would need an extensive rehab. So I realized this is not the property for me, and I didn't feel like it was a good deal. Anyway, I connected with a friend of mine out of Texas, and he was looking to buy property in Oklahoma. And I said, okay. And if he told me if I can find him a deal, that he would give me $1,000 finder's fee, and that we would split the equity. I would get 50% of the deal, and I would get 10% to manage it. I said, okay, that'd work. So we went back and revisited, and a couple of weeks later, that house hasn't sold. Usually that's not a good sign when a property hasn't sold quickly. And so I got the deal under contract, called my buddy. He funded the deal with his cash, and then a couple of weeks later, relatively quickly, he found a bank in Oklahoma that would finance it, and he convinced the bank, which was pretty savvy, to give him all his money back. So he had no money in the deal, and I would manage the property and take care of it for him. So a couple months rolls by, and the tenants, they stopped paying, and I was like, whoa, we don't play that here. And so we had to take him to eviction court. So I take him to eviction court, normal procedures. When we get to the eviction court, I wasn't there. My attorney was there, and he called me on his cell phone. He says, hey, man, you can't do that. And I mean, what do you mean? The property was in terrible condition, and the judge would go off on you for having the people live in this condition. I was like, hey, Mr. Attorney friend, I purchased the property in this condition. I didn't force them to live like that. They've been living that way for several years. I just recently took the property over. He said it's not good enough. He said if you are the owner of the property, you must maintain it. Anyway, with some grace, I got through that eviction. The folks moved out, and then I was like, my buddy's like, you need to rehab it. So now, normal rehab on my side, I just dive right in, and I have a system in place, but now I'm spending someone else's money, and I was a little nervous about it. So I started just digging into this rehab, and then realized this is a lot of extensive work for a house that's $16,000, which in my world, the maximum would be worth $25,000. So I'm digging into this rehab, spending my buddy's money, and then realize a lot of learning curves were about to ensue on me. One was, should I tile the whole place? Should I make the place bulletproof? Are we going to hold this property? Are we going to sell this property? What is the ultimate goal here? So I just dove in, rehabbed it, tiled the whole place, fixed everything up that I could. And the next thing you know, I turned around. Man, we have almost $24,000 into this property, which is a property that I would pass on. And it still needs a condenser. The one great thing about it, it had a relatively new roof and it had a new central heat, but it did not have a condenser. And this was during the wintertime, so I wasn't really too concerned. But in the summertime, I knew I would have to drop another $2,000 into the property or hear the tenants belly out. So I rehabbed it and couldn't rent it. I had it listed, couldn't rent it, dropped the price, couldn't rent it. My investor friend, he was not really concerned because it was such a small number. But in my world, I was kind of frustrated that it wouldn't rent. And, a couple of things that you need to be aware of across the street was the projects. So maybe that was a concern. Maybe it was a 2-bedroom. I couldn't figure it out. It was rehabbed well. but it just kept going on and on without a tenant. And then I dropped it down to another $50, dropped it down another $50. And then next thing you know, we're at the bottom, and I'm communicating to my partner, my buddy that loaned the money, and it's his asset and it's in his name. We just have an understanding. I'm managing it. And then to sell the property, if we ever sell it, I get a 50% equity split. No big deal. Thinking I'm doing good. I get a 10% management fee. It is my asset. But what I realized, I'm not making any money on this deal. 3 or 4 months into the deal, no rent, which no rent means no management fee. So I had to have a conversation with my homie, and I said, hey, what are we going to do with this property? First, I feel bad that you have all this cash laid out, because he just recently, mailed the check for the rehab, and that's his money. Again, the goal is not the goal, but the concept was that he has all the money in. I manage it. He's a passive investor. I'm more of a active, aka aggressive investor. So I was just bummed that it wasn't renting. And he would run the numbers. He was very smooth with the numbers. He's just like, hey man, our return is in the 20%, in double digits. Don't worry. And I'm like, hey man, I'm worrying. It's sitting there. It's vulnerable to the elements. It's vulnerable to vandalism. We're in the hood good, and things could happen. And so he ran the numbers, and he was asking me, well, what do I think? And I'm like, well, I don't know what to think. So he's like, after we kind of deliberated together, he's like, hey, let's sell it. And so I was like, great, just one less thing out of my world. But I didn't think it would sell in my mind. I passed on it for 16 and then rehabbed it, and then it didn't rent. So obviously I'm assuming that this is not a successful endeavor. Like, it's not a pop-in deal that it will sell relatively quickly. Well, to my demise, this is why it's an ever-ending learning battle as an investor. Well, we listed it for $35,000. I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. Now, keep in mind, the max that I pay in this neighborhood is roughly around $25,000, and that's with central heat and air. So, yeah, I'm a little conservative, but still. And sure enough, we had tons of offers on the property. I couldn't believe it. I don't know if it's the height of the market, or I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm not the savvy guy I think I am. Anyway, it went through. We got it under contract, and then we just ran into a bunch of other problems. The gas line was disconnected under the property. We had to get a plumber. We couldn't get it done in a timely manner. I'm thinking this whole time we're going to lose this deal. We had 3 interested buyers. Now I'm thinking to myself, on the hood of good, how could this? We're offering highest and best. What world am I in? So, make a long story short, it sold. It closed, $32,000. I could not believe it. Again, this is one of those things that just looks good on paper. You bought it for 16, rehabbed it, sold it for 32, little profit. I am just so thankful that the deal closed, and I no longer have to show the property, or no longer have to suck it dry in my own world, that this is not working well. So is this a deal? Man, on paper, it looks like a deal. I'm glad it's over with. But hey, at the end of the day, we didn't make a profit. So that's what you need to do as an investor. Hey, my name is Steven Van Kallenberg. Thanks for listening to The Best Deal. I don't know if it was ever. If you have a best deal, let me know. Go to thesavvyradioshow.com, and I would love to hear from you. Have a great day. Oh, forgot to tell you, go buy assets.
Investor Weekend is not far off, with over 10 information sessions to increase your portfolio. Log on to www.investorweekend.com. Whether you are a seasoned investor or never purchased a property before, you don't want to miss the Investor Weekend. Join us for a powerful, knowledge-packed weekend with over 10 informational sessions that are bound to enlarge your real estate investments. You will hear from the best national and local real estate investors that will share practical and relevant experiences with you, the investor. There will be several networking sessions to connect with other like-minded people for potential funding, partnerships, and yes, hot deals. Go to www.investorweekend.com. Did you know we meet once a month for the Landlord Lunch Meeting? The third Wednesday of every month. Go to landlordlunch.com.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.